Yes. Oh, yeah. There was a recent movie called 신과 함께. That's about. Thank you, Yeonsu, for your kind introduction, and I'm delighted to be here.
여러분은 사후세계에 대해 생각해 보신 적 있으신가요? 오늘은 미국 일리노이주에 있는 시카고 미술관에서 오래전 한국인들이 상상했던 사후세계를 불교 미술을 통해 알아보는 시간을 가져보겠습니다.
So, what happens to life after death? And how was this visualized and expressed in art is the question that I pose today. This has been a perennial question and concern throughout humanity, expressed in different manners and forms.
생명이 있는 존재라면 반드시 피할 수 없는 죽음. 특히 인간은 태초 이후 생각을 할 수 있을 때부터 죽음 뒤의 세계에 대해 끊임없는 고민을 해왔습니다. 그 누구도 정확히 알 수 없기 때문에 더욱 궁금한 것인데요. 먼저 서양에서는 사후세계를 어떻게 표현했을지 보겠습니다.
To name a prime example from the Renaissance Europe, Domenico de Michelino depicts here Dante Alighieri from 14th century, author of the Divine Comedy, holding his book next to his beloved city of Florence on this wall painting in the Duomo de Firenze. Behind him, the gate of the mountain of paradise is guarded by the angel, while the descending path to the flames of hell is led by horned monsters on the left. There it is.
서양에서는 천국과 지옥으로 나눠 천국은 천사가, 지옥은 뿔 달린 악마가 지키고 있을 것이라 상상한 것인데요. 그렇다면 한국에서는 사후세계를 어떤 모습으로 상상했을지 보시죠.
So today, we'll talk about how the afterlife was imagined in Korea, focusing on this rare painting of Kishitigara and deities in the collection of the Art Institute, dating to the late 16th to early 17th century. Now, this is painted in ink and colors on hemp, and it is believed to have been originally hung behind a sculptural image of Kishitigara, as you see here on the left, inside a hall of the netherworld, or as it's called, Myeongbujeon, as it's called in Korean. Now, these halls dedicated to the dead are essential components of a Buddhist temple that still stand today, a place where the bereaved come to mourn the deceased, wishing for their safe journey in afterlife.
절에 가면 벽에 그림들이 그려져 있는 것을 보신 적 있으실 겁니다. 그 그림을 자세히 보시면 어떤 그림들은 약간 무서운 느낌이 들기도 하는데요. 이것이 옛 한국인들이 생각했던 사후세계를 그린 그림이기 때문이었습니다. 그 내용에 대해 알아보기 전 강의에서 주로 다룰 지장보살에 대해 간단히 살펴보겠습니다.
The central figure Kishitigara, we translate as Tizang in Chinese, Jijang in Korean, Jizo in Japanese. He certainly became very popular in East Asia. Literally means earth treasury, and he originated in India as the god of the earth and became one of the four principal bodhisattvas or saintly beings in East Asian Mahayana Buddhism. Kishitigara is mentioned in the Sutra of the Original Vows of Kishitigara, first translated from Sanskrit into Chinese in the 7th century by a monk named Siksananda from the Khotan region. According to the scripture, he took the vow to save all those in hell between the death of Gautama Buddha, the historical Buddha, and the rise of Maitreya, or the future Buddha, and usually appears as a monk with a shaven head, holding a staff with 6 rings that opens the gates of hell, and a wish-granting jewel called Sintamani that lights up the dark regions.
지장보살에 대한 설명이 끝나자 목을 축이려는 교수님, 살짝 긴장하셨던 걸까요?
Sorry.
그러곤 다른 작품 설명으로 이어집니다.
It's actually unique to Korea. You don't see this in Chinese painting. So this pairing of Demon King with Daoming is unique to Korea, and the earliest instance is found in this Haeinsa woodblock print that 무독기왕 and 도명 화상. So it's dated to 1246. So this is the earliest instance of it.
해인사에는 국보 8만 대장경뿐만 아니라 최초로 만들어진 불교 작품도 있었던 것인데요. 한국에만 있는 독특한 작품 하나 더 보시죠.
Another version here, Jijang with the six light bodhisattvas, added with the four guardians of the four directions. And then again, poisonous demon king and Daoming here. And the last one is all the rest plus Indra and Brahma, right? So you have kind of increasing figures surrounding Kishtagarbha. So these are 15th, 16th centuries, then which leads to our painting, the painting in your collection at the Art Institute. So by now you can all identify these figures, right? So there's Kishtagarbha in the middle in their painting. Okay, Kishtagarbha is still worshipped today in Buddhist temples as the merciful bodhisattva who will save all those in hell. No, I visited this temple just before I came in my neighborhood in Pongwonsa, next to Yonsei University. And I saw these packs of rice being offered to the altar, yeah. And the photographs of the deceased placed on the altar. And also names of, hanging from the ceiling in the wish that their next journey will be a safe one. So this is a practice that still goes on in today's Korea within the Buddhist temples. So I've given you kind of an overview of how it originated in China and how it developed and the unique path that Korea took in the representation of the Kishtagarbha and Tenking's painting. Now to conclude, at this time when the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed the frailty of life and reminded us of the inescapable finite nature of human existence, may this Kishtagarbha painting in the Art Institute offer you comfort and hope that all will be fine, that all will be safe in the journey to come, protected and guided by these compassionate and devoted deities. Okay, thank you. Okay, I hope I was clear, but if you have any questions, I will be happy to entertain.
강의가 끝나고 관객들에게 질문을 받는데요. 교수님의 예상과는 달리 한국의 불교 작품에 궁금한 점이 많았던 미국인 관객들은 마이크도 없이 큰 소리로 질문하기 시작했습니다.
Yes?
이 관객분은 강의에서 나왔던 그림들을 실제로 보고 싶다며 벽에 그려진 것인지 지금도 그대로 그려져 있는지 질문했습니다.
As murals. Of Kishtagarbha, you mean? Yes, I mean mural paintings in Goryeo Dynasty. Yeah, Goryeo Dynasty. A lot of them were painted on murals. They do survive. Yeah, not too many, but they are there. You know, Pusoksa and as murals. But I think in the Joseon Dynasty, they tended to paint on hemp, and this was, I guess, Goryeo Dynasty were tended to paint it on silk. But then Buddhism was pushed back, right? It was suppressed during the Joseon Dynasty as Confucianism became the ruling ideology. So they were all sort of in the mountains, and the materials, of course, aren't as refined as in the Goryeo Dynasty. And so the quality is, one could say, deteriorated, but the practice continued. And at court, even some women practiced, Buddhism. So it was like the official religion was Confucianism, but in private, women would still practice Buddhism, and there are instances of queens, practicing, continuing the practice. But anyways, it still continued. The tradition still continued throughout the Joseon Dynasty in many forms, and absorbing local traditions, and it took on different paths. But so these paintings do survive, yeah. And I think Yeonsu just showed me a few, and you have potential for more interesting paintings in your storage room. I think, more to come. Yes?
첫 번째 질문이 끝나자마자 다른 관객이 질문하는데요.
Oh yeah. There was a recent movie called 신과 함께 that's about happens in contemporary life. I think he was a firefighter, who dies and then goes down to hell and goes through the 10 courts. Yeah. So it's still, and it was a very popular movie, 신과 함께, with those great movie stars, that everybody loves, good-looking Korean male stars. I forget their names, but anyway, yeah. So I think there was a one, and then there was a sequel to that. There was two. I think some of you may have seen it. Yeah. So it's still very yeah. I think people.
불교와 사후세계에 대한 이야기를 그린 작품 신과 함께가 흥행에 성공했다 말하자 관객은 한국인들이 현재 일상생활에서도 불교와 사후세계에 푹 빠져 있는지 다시 질문했습니다.
Commercial ad. Maybe not to that extent, but like the King Yama, like 염라대왕. I mean, that's a very common. It's like everybody knows who 염라대왕. He's the King Yama, the originated from India, who is the powerful, mean king. Who would scrutinize you, and that's you'll meet 염라대왕 when you're in hell. So. Yeah, be careful. Don't people would in language make comparisons to, like this boss is the Yama of the office or something. Things like this. So yeah, comparisons.
서양과는 다른 개념이기에 미국인 관객들은 궁금한 점이 많았던지 계속해서 질문을 이어나갔습니다. 질문에 답하던 교수님은 조금 더 자세히 동양의 사후세계에 대해 설명하는데요.
But anyway, so it's what fascinates me is kind of how the Chinese kind of really, compared to the West, they made into a real system. Very meticulous and scheduled periods, and it was a perfect bureaucracy. Everything is recorded, and then and then like magistrates, all these officers. Like what happens in life is happening also underground. And it was a perfect bureaucracy at work, meritocracy, and every action. So you'll be, you get what you do, right? So karma is essential, I guess, underlying idea here that every action has consequences. And depending on that, your next destiny will be decided. So every, I think, culture has its ways of trying to make people good and behave, and trying to scare them and trying to lure them to do good. And this is how the East Asian region envisioned it, So you probably know all the biblical stories. And so I started out with what you're probably familiar with. And then probably the Ten Kings story probably gives you an interesting comparison as to how in the East it was imagined. So it was actually started out very seriously, and they wrote a scripture on it, So they had a whole scripture and whole explanation of what happens there, gory details about. So I spent a lot of time looking at all the different tortures that you get. If you lie, then your tongue will be pulled out and tweezers will, cut you. And anyway, so on. It wasn't so pleasant, but it was part of my assignment. So, yes.
이번은 한국과 중국의 불교와 사후세계에 어떤 차이가 있는지에 대해 물었습니다.
Yeah, what happens in China, what is really interesting is that these Ten Kings paintings become very secularized, actually. All this iconography, the mirror of, except the mirror, like the scale of actions or the turning of the wheel, all that stuff, it disappears by the Southern Sung in China. The scriptural-based iconography disappears and becomes very secularized. And Professor Stephen Teiser at Princeton University argues that by the Southern Sung, these mortuary rituals were no longer practiced within the Buddhist temple, but it became a secular practice. It was conducted by mortuary specialists. So it left the Buddhist precincts, and it became a kind of a diffused popular practice, a cult, in other words. Yeah, so everybody believed in, and it was no longer in the church. It was something that everybody believed, and these paintings were owned by mortuary specialist who would do a ritual for you. You pay them some more money and you hang these paintings and have a ritual for the bereaved. And by the time it loses, so they get focused on the tortures. It becomes kind of an entertainment. It's like watching horror films. The kind of the gory pleasure you get out of that. I mean, so all the tortures and the fantastic animals and phantasmagoria, it's becomes very vivid and lively, and so I think the artists really expand their imagination and they get really kind of fancy about it, and I think it becomes part of. My sense is that it becomes kind of an entertainment too for the people. People look at it for entertainment.
이후에도 관객들은 여러 질문들을 이어나갔습니다. 전 인류가 그래왔듯 사후세계에 대한 이야기는 언제나 궁금한 주제였는데요. 서양인들에게 동양의 사후세계는 더욱 흥미로웠던 모양입니다. 그렇게 긴 시간 이어가던 질문이 끝나고 미국인 관객들의 힘찬 박수를 받으며 강의를 마쳤습니다. 여러분들은 사후세계에 대해 어떻게 생각하시나요? 옛 조상들의 생각을 알 수 있는 것으로 글과 그림이 있습니다. 특히 우리 한국은 유난히 기록을 남기는 것을 좋아했기에 지금도 우리 조상들의 생각을 엿볼 수 있는데요. 오늘 강의에서는 옛 한국인들이 사후 세계에 대해 어떻게 생각했는지 불교를 통해 알아본 시간이었습니다. 특히 고려시대는 국교를 불교로 정했었기에 불교와 관련된 작품들이 유난히 많습니다. 우리가 흔히 알고 있는 형벌에 대한 이야기는 어쩌면 흥미로울 수 있는 요소가 있기에 지옥의 모습이 더욱 강조되곤 했는데요. 하지만 이것은 먼저 떠난 가족이 지옥처럼 힘든 곳에 빠지더라도 누군가 도와주길 바라는 마음이 먼저이지 않았을까 생각해 봅니다. 오늘 강의는 여기까지입니다. 시청해 주셔서 정말 감사합니다.